Have you ever wondered how to make a radio in a survival situation? It's not just a fun DIY project but also an invaluable skill that could prove essential in a pinch. A makeshift radio can provide crucial communication and access to vital information when other means fail. Today, we're going to delve into a basic guide on how to craft a simple radio using everyday materials. So, are you ready to tap into the airwaves? Join me as we learn how to create a makeshift radio using common materials. The first step in creating a radio is gathering the necessary materials. Each piece plays a key role in the functionality of our radio, and while some are optional, they all contribute to the overall performance and reception. Firstly, we have the quartz crystal. This isn't an absolute must-have, but if you can find a small piece, it could serve as a makeshift crystal radio detector, enhancing your radio's reception. Next up is wire, specifically insulated wire, and you're going to want a good length of it, somewhere between 20 and 30 feet. The longer your wire, the better your reception will be, so don't be shy with it. Then we have the germanium diode. This little component is preferred for crystal radios, and you could potentially salvage one from old electronics or purchase one if you're preparing in advance. For listening, you'll need either a pair of earphones or a small, low-impedance speaker. Either will do the trick, so use whatever you have on hand. To wind our wire, we'll need an insulating material. This could be a piece of plastic or wood, anything that's non-conductive will work. If you have one, a variable capacitor or tuning capacitor can be a great addition. It's not essential, but it can improve tuning and make your radio more efficient. Once we've gathered all our materials, we're ready to start crafting. We'll be winding the wire, connecting the diode, setting up a ground connection, and connecting an antenna. We'll also be doing some fine-tuning to ensure we're getting the best reception possible. Remember, this makeshift radio won't rival a modern one, but in a survival situation where communication is key, this can be an invaluable tool. With a little bit of patience and some trial and error, you'll be tuning into AM stations in no time. With these items, we're ready to start crafting our radio. Now let's start with the base of our radio. This is where our radio begins to take shape. The base is crucial as it provides a structure for our radio. For this, we need an insulating material that doesn't conduct electricity. We could use a piece of plastic, wood, or even cardboard. Think of the base as the foundation of a house. Without a strong foundation, the house may not stand firm. Similarly, our radio needs a sturdy base to support the other components we'll be adding. To create the base, we're going to use our insulating material. This could be a simple piece of wood or plastic, depending on what you have on hand. The size of the base can vary, but a good starting point is about the size of a paperback book. Now this is where our creative side kicks in. We need to shape this insulating material into a form that can hold our coil of wire. It could be a cylindrical shape like a toilet paper roll, or a flat board where we can wind the wire in a spiral pattern. If you're using a cylindrical base, you'd wind the wire around it, creating a coil. If your base is flat, you'd start at one corner and wind the wire in a tight spiral. The important thing is to keep the wire tight and close together, but not overlapping. Remember, the more turns of wire you have on your base, the better your radio's reception will be. So don't skimp on the wire. We'll leave one end of the wire unconnected for now. We'll be using this later to connect to our antenna. Creating the base is a simple but essential step in making our survival radio. It's a bit like baking a cake. You need a good pan to hold your batter. Our base is that pan, providing a structure for our radio components. With the base ready, we can now move on to winding the wire. But before we do, take a moment to admire your handiwork. You've just created the foundation for your survival radio. That's a big step forward. Well done. The wire forms the heart of our radio, capturing the radio waves. It's like a spider's web, capturing the invisible threads of communication that are all around us. Let's get started with winding this vital component. Our base is ready, and it's time to wind the wire. This is a crucial step, as the wire will serve as the key element for our radio to pick up signals. It's important to remember that the longer the wire, the better the reception. So don't be stingy with it. Imagine wrapping a gift. It's a similar process, but instead of a ribbon, we're using our insulated wire. Begin at one end of the base, secure the wire, and start winding it around. Be sure to keep the wire tight as you wind, and do your best to keep the coils close together. This isn't just for aesthetics. Closely wound coils will improve your radio's performance. Keep winding the wire around the base. Remember, the more turns you make, the better the reception will be. Don't rush, take your time to ensure the wire is wound neatly and tightly. This isn't a race, and precision here will pay off when you're scanning for signals later. Once you've wound around 20 to 30 feet of wire around your base, it's time to stop. But here's the catch. You need to leave one end of the wire unconnected. This loose end will play a crucial role in connecting our diode in the next step, acting as a bridge between the wire and the diode. So there you have it. The heart of our radio is taking shape. With the wire in place, capturing those unseen threads of communication, we're one step closer to creating our very own survival radio. It might seem like a simple coil of wire, but it's so much more than that. It's a lifeline, a connection to the outside world when you need it most. With the wire in place, it's time to connect the diode. The diode and earphones are crucial for converting radio waves into sounds we can hear. Our next step involves connecting these essential components to our wound wire. The germanium diode is our star player here. It's a one-way gate for the electrical current, a feature that's pivotal to the functioning of our makeshift radio. Let's start by connecting one end of the diode to the wound wire. You simply attach it to the wire, ensuring that the connection is secure. A bit of soldering might be required here depending on the materials you have at hand. Just remember, safety first. Now that our diode is connected, we move on to the earphones. They are our output device, the component that turns the radio waves into sounds we can hear. We connect one lead of the earphones to the other end of the diode. Again, ensure this connection is secure. You don't want it coming loose in the middle of receiving crucial information. At this point, you might be wondering why we're using earphones instead of a speaker. Well, earphones are more efficient for this kind of setup. They require less power to produce sound, which is exactly what we need considering we're working with a very basic, low-power device. However, if you only have a small speaker, that can work too. So we have our diode and earphones connected and our radio is starting to take shape. But don't rush to test it just yet. We still have a few more steps to go through. We're now moving into the home stretch of our build. Our next step will be grounding our radio, an important process that helps reduce interference and enhance reception. We'll also be attaching an antenna, which will help us pick up those all-important signals. Next, we'll ensure our radio is properly grounded. A proper ground connection and a good antenna are key to reception. So, how do we establish a good ground connection? A solid ground connection can be achieved by connecting the other lead of the earphones or speaker to a good ground. This could be a metal rod driven into the earth or even a water pipe. This will serve as a makeshift ground. A good ground connection is vital as it helps to reduce electrical noise and interference, allowing for a clearer signal. Now, on to the antenna. The antenna is simply the free end of the wound wire. This wire should be extended out as far as possible to act as your antenna. The longer the antenna, the better the reception. If possible, try to elevate the wire off the ground, as this can help to improve signal strength. You can use a tree or a tall structure to help with this. Remember, the antenna is essentially the ears of your radio. It's the part that picks up the radio waves from the air. So, the better and longer your antenna, the more signals your radio will be able to pick up. In terms of connecting your antenna, it's as simple as connecting the free end of the wound wire to your antenna. This can be done using a simple alligator clip or even just by twisting the wires together. Just make sure the connection is secure. So, there you have it. You've established a ground connection and set up your antenna. These are two crucial steps in setting up your makeshift radio. We're almost there. Now let's focus on fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is what makes the difference between hearing static and receiving a clear signal. Now that we've got the basic components of our makeshift radio in place, it's time to get our hands dirty with the finer details. First up is the coil's position on the base. It's not all about just winding the wire. Where it sits can make a significant difference. You'll want to adjust the position of the coil until you start to pick up a signal. This could take several attempts, but patience is key. Next, let's talk about antennas. The antenna's length can greatly influence the reception. If you're not picking up much, try extending the antenna. You could use more wire or even repurpose a metal coat hanger or a piece of aluminum foil. Remember, the longer the antenna, the stronger the reception. Now, if you've managed to find a tuning capacitor, you're in luck. This nifty little device can help you tap into different frequencies more effectively. Just connect it in parallel with the diode and start adjusting. Turn it slowly, and listen. You'll notice that certain positions will allow you to pick up different stations. Remember, this process is all about trial and error. You'll need to experiment with the coil's position, the length of the antenna, and the tuning capacitor settings until you get the best possible reception. It might take a while, but the satisfaction of hearing a clear signal through a radio you've built yourself is well worth the effort. With these adjustments, Our makeshift radio is ready for testing. Let's see if we can pick up a known AM station. If you can hear the broadcast, congratulations. You've just built a functioning radio. If not, don't worry. Just go back, recheck your connections, and try fine-tuning again. Remember, this radio won't have the versatility of a modern one, but it's a valuable tool in survival situations, and the best part, you've built it yourself. With a bit of patience and perseverance, you've turned everyday items into a lifeline. Let's see if our handmade radio can pick up any signals. As we reach the end of our journey, it's time to put our improvised radio to the test. To do this, adjust the components for better reception and try tuning it to a known AM station. It might require some trial and error, but that's all part of the process. Remember, this radio is quite basic and designed for survival situations. It's not going to provide the versatility of a modern radio, but it can be a valuable tool when communication is crucial. We started by assembling our materials. We found a piece of quartz crystal to serve as a makeshift crystal radio detector, a long piece of insulated wire, a germanium diode, a pair of earphones or a small low-impedance speaker, and a non-conductive material to serve as the base for winding our wire. We also explored the option of using a tuning capacitor to improve tuning. Next, we created the base for our radio using the insulating material. This formed the foundation of our project. We then wound the insulated wire around the base, leaving one end unconnected. The more turns we made, the better the reception. We connected the germanium diode to the wound wire, allowing electrical current to flow in one direction only. One end of the diode was connected to the wire, and the other end to a lead of the earphones or speaker. We then established a ground connection by connecting the other lead of the earphones or speaker to a good ground. We also explored the option of connecting a tuning capacitor in parallel with the diode to help tune into different frequencies more effectively. Finally, we connected the free end of the wound wire to an external antenna to enhance the reception. We fine-tuned our radio by adjusting the position of the coil on the base, experimenting with the length of the antenna, and, if available, adjusting the tuning capacitor for the best reception. This journey has not only been about creating a radio, but also about the importance of improvisation, resourcefulness, and resilience. Remember, practice makes perfect. Keep experimenting with your radio and you'll be a pro in no time. Thanks for joining me today and stay tuned for more survival tips.